I get a lot of people saying like, your success has been so inspiring. It seems so great. I was like, I'm so glad because inside I'm like, there's so many moments of like, oh fuck, like this isn't gonna work. Like, or how am I gonna, especially like early to mid days, I was like, how am I gonna make payroll? Like there were questions where I was like, I don't know how it's gonna happen this month.
Welcome back to a new episode of This Could Work. Today we have Myles Worthington on the show, an incredible business owner, founder, and friend of the pod, and friend to me. Myles is actually a finalist of the 2025 Digiday Founder of the Year Award and also a PR Week 40 Under 40. His business and agency, Worthi, also just won 2025's PR News Platinum Award for Agency of the Year in the minority-owned category. In 2023, a Shorty Impact Award for its Bumble Love Letters to Black Women campaign, and is, of course, one of Adweek's top multicultural agencies. An absolute legend. Welcome to the show, Myles. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here, Will.
All right, let's go back in time. That the people want to know who Myles was prior to Worthi, and of course, the genesis of the idea to start this company, this award-winning company.
It was probably 2021, like last quarter 2021. I just rounded a little over 5 years at Netflix. I was super fortunate to have started when it felt like Wild Wild West. It was like no budgets, like throw good ideas at the wall. We'll do whatever kind of you think is interesting. You can do whatever you think is a good use of your time. So when I was hired in 2016, I was hired on the consumer PR team. So I started my career in PR predominantly. And I'd always done some piece of multicultural in my other past agency life. So when I got there, after it kind of got settled, I was like, where's that team? I'd love to meet them, understand what y'all are doing. And they're like, we don't have that. And I was like, oh, like, that's interesting. Like, would you mind if I like tested some things out and see if it, worked? It was at a point where we were having this revelation of like, damn, we're making about 1,000 titles a year. And we have one social handle, which is at Netflix. Like, we just do not have the inventory to market all the titles we have. Like, it just doesn't make sense anymore. So that's at a time where they're like, we need to think about different channels, different ways to push all these titles out. So we're able to market them more readily and really talk about all the titles that they're making. So that was at a point where we were thinking about what are audience channels, what are different genre channels, like what are different things that we can just create our own ecosystem of social so that we're not as reliant on third parties and we're able to really push out all the things that we're making. Let's start with Black people. And we're like, well, why? We're like, well, they're very vocal. They're very big in entertainment, very highly social. And this is a group of Black executives. We're like, we just know them the best at this point. So let's start where we know and go from there. So started thinking about what that channel could look like and its purpose and what we put on there. And it's just started getting a lot of really positive energy inside of Netflix. And it was also at a time when we had like a really high increase of like Black-led films and series. So then we got people together like, hey, like, could we create like a launch moment for this channel, create like this like coming out moment for both the channel and for Netflix, where we're saying like, hey, we are here, we are invested in this type of storytelling and the storytellers behind it. And that birthed this incredible campaign called A Great Day in Hollywood, which is an homage to A Great Day in Harlem, where we had 47 Black actors, creators, directors, etc. on this beautiful, what ended up being a 60-second spot for BET Awards, all these incredible photos, this like massive campaign that ended up being like this calling card for Netflix investment in Black storytelling and something that the industry still talks about to this day. So we had this huge moment. And shortly after everything launched, I was then asked to then go to the social team and lead, strong Black lead. And then what about Latino audiences? Like, going to be the demographic majority? Like, how are we not thinking about them? So was able to kind of push to kind of create a new channel for that audience called Con Todo. And then similar for LGBTQ plus audiences, API, et cetera. So flash forward, this was like 2021. We are just about to launch Netflix Golden for API audiences. And I hit a point where I was like, all right, like I'm launching this, like what else is there? And it felt like I was embarking on this sustain mode versus build mode. And I didn't realize how like much I like building more so than sustaining. So that started to hit me around 2021. And then coupled with the fact that like Netflix had changed a lot, as any organization does that matures. I had I think 5 CMOs in my 6 years, which is a lot to think about and deal
Mm-hmm.
with, just like the rapid change of direction. And I was just getting to a place where I was like, I think I'm like ready to explore what would be next. And every time I thought about what other studio I would go to, I was like, I don't think anything could compare to the type of
Yeah.
work, the speed, the brilliance of my colleagues that I had at Netflix. So as much as I was like entertaining that, I was like, what else could there be?
Like launching off that a little bit, just thinking about the other companies and other studios out there after Netflix. I think I similarly felt when I was there, like this sort of startup nature of
Yeah.
a studio. It was that kind of well-oiled, that not so well-oiled machine, as you mentioned, and
Mhm.
it's something that like didn't exist at a similar level by the
Right.
time that 2021 rolled along. Like even at Netflix, of course, it had matured a lot, but you look out
Mhm.
at the market and you're like, oh, Disney's 100 years old,
Yeah.
NBCU is not far behind. You know, it's like these other companies are not even close to that level of you know elasticity where you can
Yeah.
actually build something new within them. You're really going to be slotted in. So I
Mhm.
think for me, and I'm sure this is what you're getting at, is like to actually enter another sort of like entertainment feel, another
Mhm.
entertainment studio with that level of entrepreneurial spirit, you have to actually go build it yourself. And I think that that is a fundamental similarity that you and I both have, it sounds like.
100%. And something I didn't know was like a character trait of mine.
Right.
Anything I think I just developed or learned it throughout that. But you're exactly right in that, like, even at that time, like Netflix started to feel like it was growing up and being like this mature studio. And that was for Netflix
Yep.
standards, right? And if I was like going to go to a Disney or an NBC, I was like, oh my gosh, like that would be so much
Right.
slower and more red tape. And I was just like, I don't think I would like enjoy that.
Right.
So then I started thinking, like, what are the things I got to build at Netflix? And I had so many people throughout that time, both inside of the industry, out, saying like, I wish we could do that. I wish we could do something like that. And so I started thinking about like, why doesn't that exist elsewhere? As somebody who's worked with other agencies on the inside and on the agency side, I didn't see agencies in the multicultural space who were thinking about it from a growth marketing perspective, from a
Mm-hmm.
365 perspective versus like a heritage month or anything that was very superficial and
Right.
surface level around DI. And when I was looking at like the data of like growing demographics and the audiences that we know, create influence and have butts and seats at theaters, all these things, it kept coming around of, hey, like Black and brown and queer audiences are really, really vital and important to this industry. And I didn't see agencies even in that space who were, really thinking highly strategic about it and how are we growing this IP around these audiences. It always just felt superficial. So I was like, oh, like maybe there's something there. So, coming like through the holidays of 2021, I started
Mm.
writing down a business plan. Like while I had some downtime, I was like, all right, this is what it would look like. Here's what I would call it, self-serving because it's my last name, part of it being worthy. And I was like, oh, there's a kind of a double meaning to that. Like these audiences are worthy. Like had a really good time just like thinking about the foundation. And then when I got back
Mm-hmm.
to work, I was like, this is probably dumb. Like nobody actually will probably care about this, but like let me send it to some people and get their kind of thoughts. Both people who I knew and people who just I digitally knew over LinkedIn. So did that for like 3 months from like Jan to March 2022 and got like really positive feedback of like, this is really great.
Yeah.
Like love this space. And I'm a big person, I think now of just like, you have to listen to the science, the universe, all those things, because you can kind of, if you don't, you might miss out on what's actually for you. So this was April, like end of April 2022. I don't remember the exact dates, but I remember it was like a Monday that we got, this was after a few months of conversation, we got our first like SOW, so our first scope of work. This while I was still gainfully employed. And I was like, this is with Peloton. It was like a healthy 6-figure thing. Just
Wait,
like,
so you were still employed when you got your first new
yes, sir.
business. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay.
Listen, I got all these kids. I'm
Forget
not
this.
trying to like,
We can turn off this podcast now. You didn't have to bet on anything. Okay.
no,
You
well,
had it in the
I
bag.
not, it was still a risk. It was very much like, Netflix gives you a great severance. And I was like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to just walk out these
Yeah.
doors that I called it my pension. I was like, I'm not walking out without my pension.
That's right.
I
Yep.
earned that. And then, too, like you have kids. It's like, I can't, I applaud the people who can just like leave and jump without a safety net. And I was like, I
We
physically
need to
cannot do that.
we need to drill into that. I'm like, how you have many more children than I have. How many kids do you have? You have four.
4. Yeah.
Four. And
Um,
you had how many in 2022?
I had 3 at the time.
I
3 at the
mean,
time.
that is we should talk just about that. What it takes to jump from a Netflix to starting your own business with a family at home who were completely reliant on you. You know, that
Yeah.
takes a level of guts. I did not have that. I did not have kids. I was not married. None of those things. I didn't have those ties. Like that takes a whole new level of guts and belief in oneself. So kudos to
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. I didn't have any of those things. I really didn't have guts or belief. I'll get into that, but it was very much like I think that's why I was like, I can't quit because I was making good money at Netflix. I was like,
Right.
I need that. I was like, nobody's gonna pay that and whatever. But
Right.
yeah, we got that thing, and I was sitting there on a Monday like, fuck, like I can't leave this job. I need this
Mm-hmm.
severance if I want to do this. And like this is cute and all, but like once the money's up, like how am I gonna make more? Like it was all these questions of like, there's just no way I could entertain this. And then flash forward like 3 days later, so that was a Monday. We got that Thursday. I got let go. All of like the peers across like the heads of different social
Wow.
divisions that I was on, like that whole leadership team got let go. I would say
Mm-hmm.
about 75% of the team I built got let go.
Yep.
In this like big shift of like moving it was like I think they were just kind of like consolidating a lot of things around social. But for me in that room, I was like, sitting there like, oh my God, like this is amazing. Like I get my severance, like
Right.
I
Right.
did kind of work on this in quiet or
Yeah.
whatever. I get to feed my family and still kind of see what this could be. So I was I remember being in that meeting like, cool, cool, cool. Like when does the direct deposit hit? Does it hit today? Is it tomorrow? Like,
Yeah.
can you just, is it a Venmo? Like help me understand. So
What
I
are the
felt,
net terms of the severance? What are
yeah,
the net terms
exactly.
of
Is
the
it net
severance? Tell
now?
me when it's coming.
So I like,
No,
apart
I
from being
mean
like,
that's insane. I mean, someone aligned those stars for you. You didn't know
yeah,
it. Someone made that call, man, and they
they,
pushed you into the
yeah,
deep end.
I think
Yeah.
I don't think I would have done it otherwise. Like, I think I
Yeah.
had too many things in my head and I do not think I would
Totally.
have walked out those doors willingly. So I'm super grateful for how it happened. But even still, Will, like I was like doing
Mm-hmm.
this and still applying to jobs like all the
Yeah.
time. Because I was like, there's no
Yeah.
way that this is going to be a thing. Like, no chance. And I was also
Mm.
like, I'm a creature of stability and security. And got kids. I've got a lot of things that need,
Right.
my income. So I was like, I just did not believe that I could do it at all.
Yeah.
So I was applying to a million jobs while also still building this. I was like, this has to make me money for now. So we were working on Peloton. We got
What
some.
was that? How long was that chapter where you were like kind of non-committal or just didn't feel like you had
Around,
the faith yet that to go all
yeah.
in?
Sometimes I still feel like that today.
Yeah, right
Um,
now you're like
like we'll let you know when it wraps up. But no, that initial kind of like you can't do this. There's no way that this could be profitable was like. So that was April until August. So what is that? April, May, June, July, like 5 months where again, like we were still like winning business. Like Peloton was great and I didn't have any overhead. It was like building an inclusive marketing strategy over the course of 6 months, which I can do solo. So okay, that's
Yep.
great money in. I don't have any overhead on it. And again, I think it was so helpful for me in creating these initial kind of client interactions was A, the Netflix alumni network is amazing. And B, over the last few years, I had been really working on like creating a external presence on LinkedIn so people knew who I was, what I was about. So when I hit them up, they're like, oh, I know you, I know what you've done. Like not
Right.
as much explanation is needed.
Mm-hmm.
But our first like Paramount contracts came from Kevin Jack, who used to work at Netflix, then went over there and like brought us in, me at the time, to do that work. We started working with P&G because my very first client when I was a baby account coordinator in like 2000 something, he used to run the Gillette business and then became the chief communications officer over all of P&G. And he was like, oh, I'll give you this business. So it was a lot of like
Yeah.
networking and my past experiences with people professionally that it wasn't a lot of like begging and pleading and knocking on unknown doors. It was like, I know you, I
Yeah.
know what you're about, I know what you've done. Like, do this. Like, here's an entry thing.
Right.
And then, as you
Right.
know, as an agency owner, like each fun logo begets the next logo because, like, oh, if you work
Definitely.
with P&G and Peloton and
Mm-hmm.
Paramount, like, you can do this
Qualifies you. Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, also, I think that like the fact that you were also on the client side fast tracks. I do think
yeah,
that it's a like superpower
I agree.
for agency owners who have brand side experience. The network you build through being a client, being on the client side and working with these people. You know how to exactly what they need to see when, you know their expectations, you know how they speak, you know what their bosses want, you know everything about them so that they can fundamentally trust you
Yeah.
as soon as you go agency side to ultimately meet that expectation almost immediately because they know what you're capable of from your previous work.
For
So
sure.
I do think it's rare. I don't know if you've met many other brand side folks who've started
No.
agencies. I haven't, and it's something that is a unique superpower, and something that I hope anyone listening to this who is brand side and has the itch knows
Yeah.
that you will fundamentally have a step. You'll be a step ahead just
Yeah.
entering into the agency side world with that level of network compared
100%.
to folks who spend 10 years, 20 years on the
Yeah.
agency side alone.
And I think it's network, but also just the understanding of like what they have to go through, like what they need,
Mm-hmm.
what success looks like, what you have to
Yeah,
do to your day to day was super helpful. So yeah,
totally.
it's funny, like I always liken it to like, I think it's so important to start your career in the agency side. And then like you want to go brand and then go back, whatever your journey is. But I always liken it to like, if you haven't worked in a restaurant or if you haven't worked in retail, like,
Right.
I don't know if I could fuck with you
Right.
because I just don't think you
Yeah.
understand how to wear a million hats at once, how to be in
Mm-hmm.
like a service industry, think about people and their needs. Like you just learn so much. And if you've only been in house, I was like, you've been spoon fed. Like you have no fucking clue how like this actually works. And I said this to like my clients who've spent like 30 years at P&G. I was like, amazing, but like there's a lot that you don't know because you haven't been
Right.
outside of those walls. I think it's just
Well,
so valuable.
Miles, I want you to know that I had never worked in a restaurant till starting one, and I've gotten my creds now. I've
Same.
done I did it reversed, upside down cake. You know, fully have gone through the struggle, worn all the hats, but that
Yeah.
was obviously through the lens of building this company. It's been
Yeah.
fascinating, and so yeah, I didn't actually realize you were agency side before. That makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah. I worked at three
you
different
knew somewhat
agencies.
what you were getting yourself
Yeah,
into.
and when I left, I was like, I'm never going back to an agency. Like, I'm finally in house. I
Right?
did it, and like, look what I accidentally
Yeah,
ended up doing.
I've
One.
graduated. Yeah, so
But
true.
yeah, so we're still. What are we? So I was working on all those outside of Netflix. This was summer 2022, and yeah, I was still applying to jobs. And I was like, this, like, I need a job. Like, this is cute and shit, but like, I
Yep.
need a job. And this is going on for months. This felt like July, August, and I was like in the 12th round, no joke, of this job
Oh
at
my
Disney,
God.
which on paper it was like the VP of inclusive marketing and content. And like on paper, exactly where I should go next after
Yeah.
my stint at
Yeah.
Netflix. Everything like on paper looked great, but like every interview I had with like the 12 different presidents of whatever, nobody could articulate like what it was or like what it was going to be. It was a
Mm-hmm.
brand new function, and that always kind of made me nervous. But I was still like, I have to do this job. Like it's
Right.
it's just
It's the
I have
next
to.
step.
It's the next step. It's like all logical, and like I
Right.
can sunset this thing that I'm doing, which has been like, a little interim cute thing, whatever. Um, and I ended up not getting the job. And I was like, not devastated as in depressed, but I was just like, the fuck? I was like, who are you picking? Like, not in an ego way, but I was like, not when you look like have done this. So I was like, who
You're
the
like
hell?
you're like I personally know who else is in consideration
Yeah,
for this job.
exactly.
Like
I was
I
like,
can name on 4 fingers the other people who are up for this job, and I know
listen,
all their kids' names. I know who that
exactly.
is. Yeah.
I'm usually a very humble person. At that point, I was like, fuck y'all. I was like so upset. I was like, whatever. It was funny though. Like but that no, again, going back to like the theme of like listen to the
Yeah.
universe. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I probably should have on paper gotten that job, but I didn't, and there was a reason. And I've been
Right.
having one foot in my old life, one foot in the other, and I was like, I'm never gonna be able to grow this if I don't do two
No.
feet in. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, that's the universe saying like this is what you're supposed to be doing. So let me jump 2 feet in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I used my like PR background, and I called up Rebecca San, who then worked at the Hollywood Reporter, and I was like, hey, like here's something we've been working on the last 5-6 months. Would you like be open to like writing like a little something about it so people know? And
Yeah.
she was literally like, I'm gonna write the shit out of this, and like wrote this beautiful kind of like
Oh yeah.
just homage to this company. Company was me. Like I keep saying, like there's people, and at that point, no. And really was this kind of coming out moment of like Myles building Worthi, and here's what it's about. Here's who you've been working with, and just gave us that like validation, and me that validation of like at a point where I was like, well, I can't take this shit back now. Like it's been published. Like I
Totally.
can't say no. So I think I needed that like it's out there. So now you can't have 2 feet in, like, or 1 feet, put 1 foot in your old life and 1 foot in the new one. Like this is who you are and what you're doing.
Right.
So it was terrifying because I had to commit to it, but it was also really liberating of like, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
and
mean, I remember when that article came out. I was so proud of you, and two, like, just flabbergasted that article could exist for a new
yeah,
business owner. I was like, who do I know at the Hollywood
yeah,
Reporter? I was like, get me the number of
yeah.
someone to qualify me. I'm out here like smoke and mirroring my way into all these rooms. I need I
Yeah.
need I need Miles friends. I need to get some of those. So good.
Listen,
Yeah, I mean that was massive. I remember for you, and
yeah,
and I think that like through we both still know so many people at Netflix, and that Netflix alumni, Spiderweb they're all at all these other companies now. It's like I remember everyone sending that around and everyone was just so excited for you when that came out.
thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a time. And yeah, that was like August, I think, 2022. So like going into fall, I was like deep into all those things. So working with Paramount, we started working with Lionsgate, but I still hadn't hired anybody. I think I was too scared, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
So like that makes this
Yeah.
real. That makes me responsible for people's livelihood, and I was terrified of that. Like I was just like, no, like let me just like burn the candle at both ends. I'll bring in freelancers,
Right.
anything. But we just kept growing, and which is great. And it wasn't until like April 2023, so about a year later or so from like our official like soft quiet launch, we hired our first like 4 full-time people after we won like a sizable retainer from HBO.
Yeah.
We pitched for Alante, which is their very Latino forward social handle. I like found a freelance team. This was like after Twitter had a bunch of layoffs. So I found like a bunch of people that was another
Right.
thing. I was like, I don't want to hire anybody who has a job. I want to hire people who've already been fired because then I have less guilt in case things don't work out. Like these are all things that are going on my mind. It's like, I don't want to poach you from like an actual job. I want people who've already been let go because then there's no risk. Like
Right.
that was literally
Right.
what was in my
Right.
um, so won that, and I was like, all right, we can hire people because in my head, I was like, I know we're getting X amount of dollars a month. I know what this means for payroll.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be like, I think the projects that were before, which were for PNG and others, were amazing. But I was like, what happens when those end? Like, and I had these people,
Right.
like, I just couldn't fathom what that was going to be. So it wasn't until we got our first like proper retainer that I hired people. And I think it was very much like ripping the band-aid. Because once I did that, I was like, oh, like actually now I need somebody for this and somebody for that. Once we started winning more business
Yeah.
and kind of growing
Yeah.
our footprint. So what was so terrifying became like a necessity once we started to grow.
Totally.
Um, and then people like yourself who were like, doing this well in front of me, like I, used the hell of you, our mutual friend Mark, other people who've been doing this. I was like, what do I do here? Like this part scares me,
Right.
this part I don't know. And I think that network's been really helpful for me to plot those next moves. But long story
Yeah.
short, long way of saying like, that was in 2023 and now we're at 2025. We have around like 30 something full-time employees across the country. We are fully remote. But we have most of our folks are in LA, Atlanta, New York, Miami. We have a PR division of strategy, creative, production, all the things, and work with some of the biggest brands globally. So it's been, like I said, a crazy ride. I feel like I learn something new every day, fail every day, win every day, but wouldn't change it for anything.
All right, so that's a really positive story. Now I want to talk about some dark days.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your darkest. So you did the amazing initial leap, which is I think probably it feels like in my mind like that sort of foggy past where it's like, oh yeah, it was probably really easy to do this. Like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we like all it's so long ago and all the dots connected and suddenly you have this business and now it's like now my problems feel so much bigger. I
Yeah.
think today because of
Yeah.
maybe the weight of having a staff
Oh,
and
and
building
you
an
have a staff
operation and
way
all these
bigger than mine. Yeah.
and yeah, just the
Yeah.
expectations, let alone like my personal expectations,
Yeah.
let alone like the
Mhm.
expectations of my family and
Yeah.
friends and the
Right.
world who I assume for some reason cares about me. But I think that like really I'm the ups and downs of entrepreneurial pursuits and especially in agency life where you are it's one of the hardest businesses, but I'm just curious like I know I've had some dark days, a lot of like, I know you and I've talked about payment terms, talked about making
Yeah.
payroll in the early
Yeah.
days. I know you bootstrapped this just like I did. What are those moments that you think back on that were like formative for you as a
Yeah.
business owner? What shook you to your core over these past 3.5, 4 years?
Yeah, there's definitely like, I get a lot of people saying like your success has been so inspiring. It seems so great. I was like, I'm so glad because inside I'm like, there's so many moments of like, oh fuck, like this isn't gonna work. Like, or how
Right.
am I gonna, especially like early to mid days, I was like, how am I gonna make payroll? Like there were questions where I was like, I don't know how it's gonna happen this month, which were terrifying. And it usually laddered up to like those payment terms and some of our clients
Mm-hmm.
who even with payment terms are late on those payment terms. And I'm like, I don't have outside funding. So it's like if those checks from XYZ studio don't come in, I then don't have money then pay my staff. So there was a
Yep.
point, this was I think 2023. We were still small enough. I think we had maybe like 8 employees, like nothing crazy by any stretch of the imagination, but still, and like they had health insurance, 401ks, all the things. So we were like in there. And we had one studio who still, we don't work with them that much, very late on these payments. Like, and they were one of our bigger clients at the time. But like when I say late, I mean like our terms were 60, and I don't think a lot of the payments we got until around 6 months after. So egregiously
So
late.
it's an interesting battle when especially you're paying people along those
Yeah,
milestones, 2 week payroll or whatever.
exactly.
How do you have the cash on hand to do that, the cash flow, to cover it before you get paid yourself?
Early days, we were just like happy to be in the room. So, didn't feel like we
Right.
had the ability to push back. We're like, we're this small agency and you're a big studio who wants to work with us. Like, we'll just say yes.
Right.
But even within those payment terms, like, there's not much repercussion if they're late or if they don't, give them to you on time. Like, you could legally, but like, there's been a lot of instances like the one I was telling you, where like we were waiting on checks for 6 months and it was supposed to be 60
Right.
days. So there was a point where I'll never forget. I got like an alert on my phone. It was like overdraft something. I was like, overdraft on my personal account.
Right.
Maybe what did I not put enough money? And I opened it up and I was like, oh my God, like the business account got overdrafted because the checks didn't. And I was just like, I was sitting there crying. I was like, oh my God, I've fucked this all up. Like I've completely like drowned. Like what am I gonna do? 48 hours later, one of those checks came in. And I was able to make payroll and everything, but it was like literally down to the wire of like days.
Did you
Um,
did you did you did you call the bank? Were you like out of one of those movies from like the 1930s where you go in and you beg the bank to cover you for 48 hours, or could you move some
not
money around? What did you do?
I at that point I was just kind of like looking at all the invoices that were supposed to come in, all the checks, and I was like, all right,
Yeah.
like I was calling our different like the accounting teams of the different clients, and I was like, hey, like
Yeah.
when exactly is this coming in? Like I need to
Right.
know. So was
Right.
able to kind of get other basically checks to pay for the ones that were late, so I didn't have to borrow anything. But it was definitely a moment I was like sheer panic of like, how am I going to do this? And it was just because, and we still deal with this to this day of like clients not paying on time.
Right.
And for smaller to mid-sized companies like ours, it's like we rely on that. Like that's how we pay our people every 2 weeks. And now that we have like a sizable staff and freelancers, designers, all the things, it's like I need y'all to pay us on time or else we can't work with you.
Yeah.
So there are some brands we've stopped working with because of delayed
Right.
payments or things like that because I was like it's just not
Yeah.
worth the headache anymore.
This is
But that was
not.
a
This is not a. This is not a. We're not a charity for Fortune 50
no.
organizations.
And it's always the biggest ones, Will. It's like I'm like I see your stock prices, like you're fine. Why am I
You
begging
made
you?
today. Yeah, your business performed today 20 million times more than what
Right.
amount you owe me. Like,
So I'm
just
just
fork it over. Yeah.
like that part was dark. Where I remember crying and just like I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Like
Jesus.
I should just get a job. Like you're like I thought it was all over. Like I was completely a
Yeah.
wreck. But then
I
after I went through that,
I
I was like,
No, I was gonna say, I mean, I can so relate to this story. I think you are like completely not alone. I think almost any bootstrapped company, let alone probably most startups, find
yeah.
themselves in this situation at least once,
Mhm.
in their kind of tenure. It's just, I
Yeah.
remember it was maybe it was like Christmas time, like in 2022 or 2023, like one of the first kind of like, we'd made it through the first cycle, we'd landed some big clients, we'd
Yeah.
invested in a bunch of people, and we weren't getting paid. And I moved my wife and I's entire savings into the business bank account to cover payroll.
Yeah. I've been there. Been there,
Like it
been there.
literally was just not, there was no money. Like you got to
Yeah.
do it. You got to find the money.
Yeah.
You
It's
got to,
like,
I was like, okay, well,
yeah. It's
it's
like, it's
coming
coming. It's like,
someday.
I know
Yeah.
it's going to come in the next
Yeah.
30 to 60 days, but it's like,
Yeah.
there's been moments where it's like, we do a lot of our stuff on QuickBooks. So I was like, I need a quick short-term loan from QuickBooks because these motherfuckers aren't paying us on
Totally.
time. And that
Totally.
sucks. That just like, I have to keep things moving. Especially like those early days where it's like, you're so reliant check by check. And now like, luckily we're, healthier, but there was a point where it was just like, I like was livid at these companies who are not paying us on time and all that. But yeah.
Instability is here, and I think that it's like for any agency owner, and any business owner, honestly, it's like on us to evolve and to survive. We must, right?
100%.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about kind of like where you've been, you've had this illustrious career on the kind of brand side of things. You've started a business, you've had a ton of success. Thinking about, I'd like to ask this, like thinking about the folks out there who might be considering this type of venture, no matter where they are today and what age, like what would you say to them? What would it, I'm sure you talk to young people a lot. Like, what do you tell them about your entrepreneurial journey, and would you recommend this to them, and how do you talk about it?
It's definitely not for everyone, but I think I talk about it in two ways. One, it may not feel like it's for you, but you can learn into it. As somebody who, my career aspirations was always like, I'm going to be the CMO of something someday. Like I want to climb the corporate ladder, be a chief marketing officer. And like, that's the goal. And I, not only because I have kids, but I've always been attracted to stability and security. I was like, that's kind of what makes sense. And, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I'm the first person to ever have like a office job. Like my mom was a flight attendant, my grandmother did hair. Like nobody's ever had to do anything corporate before. So I had no understanding or no any roadmap of like what it should or shouldn't be. And like no entrepreneurs in our family. So it wasn't anything that was even like, oh, one day I want to start my own. I was like, absolutely not. Like, that's not for me. But I think what worked for me was, and what I tell people when they're like, oh, I want to do something like entrepreneurial. It's like, think about something that you love, that you know a lot about and find a way to monetize it. Because that way you're innately curious and excited and you already know a lot. And you're able to build something. And that's what I did for me. I was like, I've done this professionally, like love this space. Anybody who's ever worked in this space know that like I am annoyingly passionate about it. So I was like, I just have to find a way to like make money around this. And it became not easy, but very logical after that. Because I already had the foundation of like what works in the space, what doesn't, and just had to find a way to monetize it. So that's what I tell people if they're interested. It's like, what do you like doing? What themes or things do you love, and how do you find a way to make some money around it?
Yeah. If you could go back and do it with someone else's money, would you?
Ooh. That's a good question. Meaning like giving away part of the like business in order to
like those early days where I just think about like these venture-backed companies, they're playing with other people's money versus their own. I think it's a completely different relationship with
totally
the growth of the company, and obviously the meaning, what that growth actually means for them as a entrepreneur and as a business person.
Yeah, I don't think I would change how I started because I do think the bootstrapping of it all, the learning, the operations, the finance myself by like fucking it up a lot of times and learning through those fuck ups was really good for me as a business owner and a CEO, because now I just know the inner workings really well. But now as we scale, that's something I think about a lot of like, for us to get to the size that I think we can, like we will need like an influx of cash from some, other person or entity. And, we've had different conversations with other investment firms and agencies and all those things. And early days, I was like, absolutely not, because I don't want to give any part of what I own, But now I'm like, oh, like that could be a really interesting key for us to get to a bigger size. And when I think about the things that stress me the most, it's that shit. Like, it's not the creative, it's not the work. I'm like, our team's really good at the work. It's usually the
Right.
back end stuff that sometimes is outside of my control. So at this stage, I'm like, yeah, I would absolutely entertain something like that if it meant that we can kind of grow more steadily and like I could not have as many gray hairs on the side of my head. That
Yeah.
would be awesome.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. Myles Worthington, Worthi is open to offers. Make sure they're really high. Make
Really
sure
high.
they're incredibly high. And anyway, all right. What do you want to plug? What's out there in the world? What do you guys got going on? Anyone on your team you want to shout out before we wrap this up?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky that we've built a really, really amazing team. I think what I started with was like hiring a leader of my PR group and leader of my marketing group, and they've been with me ever since. And they really are like my right and left hand. So Bree Jones runs my PR team. Don't poach them. Anybody listening to this? Eddie Rizzo runs my marketing group, and they're just so smart and so like loyal, not even just to me, but to the work. And have built just brilliant teams underneath them, are so good at client service. And it's just been, I just couldn't have done it without them kind of being in the trenches with me. So that's amazing. And for anybody listening who's like, I want to start my own thing, like hire the right people, hire people you want to spend time with, you really admire, who are better than you at a lot of things. I learned that at Netflix of like, hire people better and smarter than you. And I've never like looked back from that, inkling. Like that is like hiring people who have things that you don't have is so vital. And not being afraid of like hiring people, even though they're like have a different title or a lower title than you. It's like, you should be smarter than me in some areas, like doing things that I don't know how to do or whatever. So that's been really good. And yeah, for us, like as an agency, we are super, super focused on, building that bridge between what we call underestimated audiences and brands, IP, et cetera. We think we just do it differently and smarter and more growth marketing mindset than any of our competitors. And we do a ton of entertainment, but we're starting to do more. Like Google's been a client for almost 3 years. So we do a lot in tech. We work in CPG and food and bev. We're starting to work in spirits. So lots of different industries, with just the main kind of central focus of, connecting brands to these audiences that we know have massive influence and buying power. So that's us in a nutshell.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
congrats on everything, Myles, and thank you so much for joining the pod.
Thank you.
Wishing you all the best and excited things ahead for Worthi, I'm sure.
Appreciate you, and thank you for laying the blueprint, Mr. Saylor. You've done incredible things that have made me like, we would get coffee and things along my journey, and I'd ask you the questions that you had figured out a year before. So you've been super helpful as well, my friend. So I appreciate you.
This Could Work is a production of Saylor Creative Agency and hosted by Will Trowbridge, the CEO and founder. The show is executive produced by Ray Vada and produced and edited by Corey Lubowich. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
What was that? Are you still under 40? Was that last year?
Yes, that was
How old
last
are
year.
you?
You still have some years before we can.
Good years, man.